Daddy, why is it that when nouns ending with stop in English become plural, the pronunciation of the plural suffix s is sometimes voiceless and sometimes voiced?
Can you give some examples?
For example, the simplest words cake, map, light, dog, tab, card. The first three end with voiceless stops and their plural suffix s is voiceless, while the last three end with voice stops and their plural suffix s is voiced.
The fact that you can name such a linguistic phenomenon in English means that you have found part of their pattern. So let's talk about assimilation in languages today. Assimilation is a very common phenomenon in languages. We can use many criteria to classify it, and different classifications overlap. One assimilation phenomenon can be classified by multiple criteria. Due to time constraints, we will only talk about three most common classification criteria. It should be noted that there are often multiple conceptual names for a type of assimilation, and here we only refer to them by relatively common names. The first classification is based on the direction of assimilation. Here we only talk about unidirectional assimilation. Unidirectional assimilation can be divided into two categories: progressive assimilation and regressive assimilation. Progressive assimilation occurs when in the sequence of segments AB, segment A exerts influence on segment B. In other words, segment A is the assimilator, while segment B is the assimilee. On the contrary, regressive assimilation occurs when in the sequence of segments AB, segment B exerts influence on segment A. In other words, segment B is the assimilator, while segment A is the assimilee. These two types of assimilation have opposite directions of effects. Let's take 4 examples here. In these 4 examples, due to their internal assimilation, the pronunciation on the left side of the arrow changes to the pronunciation on the right side of the arrow. In the first 2 English examples, we omitted the noun component that should be given after the definite article D, but it does not affect our interpretation. Here, the interdental fricative the at the beginning of the definite article is directly assimilated to the same as the final phone in the previous word due to the influence of the final phone in the previous word. Obviously, both of them are progressive assimilations. The third example is the change of the nominative and accusative plurals of the word mouse in Proto-West Germanic, which is also a diachronic assimilation. The backness of the previous vowel wu in this word changed due to the influence of the latter vowel e. So, this is a kind of regressive assimilation. Similarly, the fourth example is the Chinese example. The Chinese word 面包, which means bread in English, consists of 2 syllables. The syllable codec of the first syllable is influenced by the initial consonant p of the second syllable and changes from alveolar nasal to bilabial nasal, which is also a kind of regressive assimilation. The second classification is based on the distance of assimilation. They can be divided into contiguous assimilation and non-contiguous assimilation. They need not be concerned with the direction of assimilation. In other words, they can both be either progressive assimilation or regressive assimilation. The difference between them is that contiguous assimilation occurs when there are no intervening segments between assimilees and assimilators. Conversely, non-contiguous assimilation occurs when there are one or more intervening segments between assimilees and assimilators. It is clear from this that our first, second, and fourth examples are contagious assimilations because there are no intervening segments between their assimilators and assimilees, while the third example is non-contiguous assimilation. The third classification is based on the level of impact. According to this, assimilation can be divided into complete assimilation and partial assimilation. In the first example, the interdental consonant the undergoes complete assimilation. Its phonetic properties became completely consistent to the previous consonant z. The second one is similar, also completely assimilated, and is omitted here. For the third example, the first vowel, wu, of the Proto-West Germanic musi was partially affected in its backness by the backness of the second vowel, e, and the first vowel was changed from a back vowel, wu, to a front vowel, ü, but the other properties of backness remain unchanged like rounded and closed. Therefore, it was a partial assimilation. The fourth example of assimilation is similar and will not be repeated. So, my boy, have your initial questions been answered?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we have for today. See you next time.